Hey, would you look at that? A free agent actually signed a contract.
You are Locked On MLB, your daily MLB podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, baseball fans, and welcome to Locked On MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is your team every day. We are now the #1 sports podcasting network. This is the podcast we talk about all of Major League Baseball all season long. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully. Follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter or whatever it's called these days. And on Instagram, I'm your pal Sully with Sully Baseball Podcast Instagram. Best way to get a hold of us is right here on the YouTube page, and leave that hashtag Everyday Sully. And today's episode is brought to you by our good friends over at FanDuel. The wild card round is here, and FanDuel is officially in playoff mode. So visit FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the National Football League, and grab your profit boost pack every NFL playoff game day. And it was quite a day for Chicago fans today, because the Bears had a wild comeback, and the Cubs decided to realize that Chicago is a large market. Now, there are plenty of places to check in about that Packers-Bears game, which I did indeed watch, and it was a very exciting game. But this is Locked On MLB, and those little football games that are being played now, they're nicely cute. But the main thing I'm thinking about are all these free agents that are left unsigned. I talked about them, and we're going to talk about a big move that took place while the Bears were pulling the rug out from underneath the Green Bay Packers. In fact, if you listen to Sam Olber, did a terrific sort of emergency podcast on Locked On Cubs. He opined that the Cubs leaked the information of this signing to cheer up Chicago fans as they were getting clobbered by the Green Bay Packers, only to see the Bears have a massive comeback. Okay, let's get down to brass tacks. This is them. I'm not going to talk about football. I don't know enough about football to talk about it. Here's the deal. The first of the big free agent signings that people have been waiting for, and the last of the really great Wang Doodles, and if anyone understands that reference, God bless you, Alex Bregman, who has mainly been a Houston Astro in his career, but had a Adrian Beltre-like cameo with the Boston Red Sox, just signed. This is per John Heyman of the New York Post and Jeff Passan of ESPN, two people who know their stuff. 5 years, 175 million pigs, off to the Cubbies. And Scott Boras' client, I don't understand people who hate Scott Boras. He does his job. If he hosted podcasters, I would want him to be my agent, because he goes out and gets the best for him. And Bregman, who had a little bit of trouble signing with teams last year, signed a deal with Boston and opted out. And here we go. So Bregman is going to be put into a Chicago Cubs team that did not win the division last year, but did make it to the postseason and got to won that first the wild card round. I keep forgetting what it's called. It's the wild card round again, and they won a best of 3 series in 3 games against a very good San Diego team. They were a 92-win team last year, so they're obviously a quality team, just a few games behind Los Angeles, actually. And they had, Nico Hoerner had a very good year with them. Pete Crow Armstrong had an excellent year with them. And Michael Busch had a solid year. Dansby Swanson. They are going to have really one of the best infields when you stop and think about it. Busch is a big power hitter. Got his 34 homers at there. Hoerner's at second. Swanson at short. And now he can put Bregman in at third. What does this mean for young Matt Shaw? Well, not 100% sure yet what that means for him. But they also have an outfield that has Happ and Pete Crow Armstrong. And Suzuki is their primary designated hitter. Now, they traded away Owen Casey in the deal to bring in Edward Cabrera. And, Shaw was one of their big young players who was going to, be part of their great future. And he had an okay rookie season. He didn't burn anything down, but he didn't break anything. He got 13 home runs, and for a 23-year-old who came in and he did fine, and he showed he belonged in the major leagues. I mean, he wasn't great, and obviously he's going to lose his job to Alex Bregman. But he's a good young player with a great young future, which makes me wonder: are they going to try to make him an outfielder, or are they do they have another trade up their sleeve? Bregman is an excellent third baseman. Now, he didn't have a great year with Boston last year, but he was solid. And you're not asking him to be the superstar on this team. You're asking him to be the big guy who's been there, done that, been a World Series champion with the Astros. Yes, he was part of that World Series team that we must not talk about, but he was also part of the 2022 team, which no one has an issue with. This is a guy who led the league in WAR in 2019, but that was before the Astros were caught. But since then, he's been a guy who puts up some solid power numbers. He missed a significant amount of time with Boston last year, but when he was playing there, he did his job and did his job well. Thank you very much. And he has a lot of postseason experience, including last year. And he wound up actually, no, he didn't homer in the playoffs, but he wound up batting .300 against the Yankees in the 3-game division series. He has 19 career postseason home runs and 102 postseason games. And he just, along with Dansby Swanson, gives the Cubs a couple of people who have been there and done that. Now, and we're going to assume that this means that Kyle Tucker is gone. And I think that's pretty much a safe assumption right now, unless the Cubs just want to go all out. And unless the Cubs want to say, yeah, we are a big-time, big market club. And if you bring Tucker back and add Bregman to the lineup, and then now you also include Cabrera in the rotation, along with Matthew Boyd, along with Colin Ray, along with Cade Horton, and all of a sudden you have yourself a really good rotation, a really good lineup. And the Chicago Cubs look like they're a really good team that is making some really smart moves. I think what they should do, and I'm not the Cubs general manager, I want to end that rumor right now, but I think that they should probably make a deal with Shaw. I think Shaw, who is a good third base prospect, has a year in the major leagues. They should flip him for another good outfielder. I think that and I don't have a name right now, but they should be walking around, asking around, see what team has a surplus of outfielders but need an infielder, and they can Reese's peanut butter cut this because Shaw can fit into someone else's infield. And if the team is a glut of outfielders but they need a solid infielder, there you go. There you go. Maybe you flip them with Jason Dominguez. I mean, I'm just throwing some stuff out there, but the Yankees need an infielder. Shaw third base for the Yankees and Dominguez in the outfield for the Cubs. That was just one that came off the top of my head. I'm sure there are better examples. I'm sure someone just threw their iPhone across the room when I made that suggestion. Well, with this signing, it is a significant move for the Cubs. I think it's a smart move for the Cubs, especially if they think they're going to lose Tucker. And I think Tucker is probably going to go elsewhere. When we come back, I want to talk a little bit about the fact that the dominoes they have to eventually fall. We got a season to play. And this being the first domino to fall, I find it interesting because it has ramifications for Tucker, for the Cubs, and for the Yankees. And the final segment, I'm going to quote Darth Vader, which is never a good thing. The wild card round is here, and FanDuel is officially in playoff mode. Every game day during the National Football League playoffs, FanDuel is giving customers even more ways to get in on the action because right now, every NFL playoff game day, FanDuel's get a profit boost pack waiting for them inside the application. Each game day, You'll see a pack load with multiple profit boosts, and you could apply them to the bets you like the most. Open your profit boost pack and first thing on game day, and you see what boosts that you want to apply. The boosts let you lean into your game day instincts with your backing momentum. And boy, there was momentum today in that very weird Green Bay Chicago game. Defense, quarterback play, coaching, or whether or not the Rams were going to beat the Panthers. And there's going to be a bunch of games tomorrow. The boost gives you more juice on the bets you already like instead of forcing you to bet on something new. You understand that? Good. Every play seems bigger, and the boost makes your bet feel that way too. Say that 3 times fast. You can make your picks, then apply your profit boosts to go after even bigger payouts while the playoffs get rolling. So visit FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL, and grab your profit boost pack every NFL playoff game day, and hopefully that made sense to you. All right. Did I just show my cards there? Hey, let's do the trivia question here. I said this the other day. What 17-year Major League Baseball veteran World Series champ born on this day was named after Hall of Famer Stan Musial? And GRT Hughes, who's a everydayer, said Stan Javier. That's right. Stan Javier's father, Julian Javier, played for the St. Louis Cardinals during their great run in the 1960s. And when he broke in, one of the veterans who took him under his wing was the great Stan Musial. And when Julian Javier had a child, had a son, he named him after him. It was Stan Javier. And Stan Javier actually had a really nice career. He was one of these people who never was a star, never was the best player, but was always a reliable player, solid hitter, solid outfielder, terrific speed, was part of the A's team that won the World Series the earthquake year of 1989, was part of several teams that went to the postseason, including going to San Francisco. He was traded from the A's to Los Angeles during the 1990 season when the A's needed to have another infielder, and they brought in Willie Randolph, and just had a really solid career. And he was named after Stan Musial. All right, good job, GRT Hughes, on getting the trivia question. All right, so now a little bit of the ice is broken. Now, like that ship in Frankenstein, the beginning and end of Frankenstein, where that ship is frozen in the ice and starts to break free. Well, now it's starting to break free. And the first big domino fell with Bregman. So the big kahuna is still out there in Tucker, and the Cubs are basically saying, we're moving on. I think they should make a move to bring in another outfielder. But, then again, as I said, injuries always find a way to make some room on that roster. That's just the way it is. You may not want to hear that, but that is just the way it is. Now, it's interesting. With the fact that the Cubs have made this move, Tucker is floating out there right now. Now, the most likely landing spot for him is, in my opinion, the Toronto Blue Jays. The Blue Jays, who are going all in, need to have another bat. And they now have probably enough infielders that they can withstand the loss of Bo Bichette, and bringing in a player like Tucker could give their outfield a little bit more depth and have a really dynamic lineup there. I mean, they have no problem with them signing Bo Bichette to come back, but I have a feeling Tucker is going to be the one to come back. And I also think Bo Bichette, he's talking with the Philadelphia Phillies right now. And if Bichette can make the move to second base, then the Phillies are going to have a terrific infield. And if they retain Kyle Schwarber and bring in Bo Bichette, then I think that's going to be really, really good for the Phillies. But there's another interesting sort of ramification with the signing of Bregman with the Chicago Cubs, and that's this. It has to do with Bellinger. Now, the Yankees seem to be looking towards plan B with Bellinger, because Bellinger wants something like 34 million or something crazy like that over 6 or 7 or 8 years. The Yankees seem willing to give him that annual uh, paycheck, but not for the years. And and they seem to be already putting the whole, well, it's time to move on. I thought if the Yankees were moving on from Bellinger, or Bellinger was moving on from the Yankees, the most likely landing spot for him, in my humble opinion, was Chicago, the Cubs. Because if they're going to lose Tucker, they needed another bat, and they could bring Bellinger in, who is a former Cub as well. But with the signing of Bregman, I think the chances of the Cubs signing Bregman and Bellinger are not great. And if you're going to sign a player like Bellinger and put that kind of money up, then you might as well just bring back Kyle Tucker. So the most likely landing spot for Bellinger was the Chicago. So does this mean that he's floating out in the ether? Now, he could go back to the LA Dodgers, especially if the Dodgers make a move involving Teoscar Hernandez. Who knows? Maybe they trade Hernandez to the Cubs for the Shaw deal. I don't know, and neither do you. That wouldn't be a good deal for the Cubbies, in my very humble opinion. But there could also be another team laying in the weeds. There always seems to be one owner who says, to hell with it, I want to bring in a star, and they overpay for someone. So you might see someone like, you might see the Seattle Mariners, you might see the Texas Rangers, or hell, you might even see a completely off the wall situation like the Pittsburgh Pirates. I think the San Francisco Giants should really kick the tires on Cody Bellinger, and who knows, maybe they will. Recently, they seem more likely to sign Clay Bellinger than Cody Bellinger, but that's beside the point. The Giants have dangled big contracts in front of people, and everyone seems to reject them. And maybe they could say, well, if we overpay for Bellinger, maybe that's what we need. I would love to see the Giants go after one of the pitchers so they can build up a nice rotation to go along, with the way that they have their pitching situation right now. You have the Framber Valdez's, or you have the Ranger Suarez's of the world, floating out there totally unsigned. And the Giants, with, Buster Posey leading the way, have an ace. They have Logan Webb, and they have Robbie Ray, who's a really good number 2 starter. And if you put in a Valdez or a Ranger Suarez, all of a sudden they have a good 1, 2, and 3. But what do I know? But I wonder if this opens up the door a little bit for the Yankees. If you take the Cubs out of the picture, and if you're not sure if the Dodgers are going to be signing him for that big, long contract, suddenly the Yankees are back in play. And you wonder if this is all just posturing by them to sort of show, well, we're really into this, that, or the other thing. I don't know, neither do you, but this is, this is part of the chain reaction of events. And I'm dropping this very early Sunday morning. I'm hoping that the show I drop on Monday is filled with all sorts of craziness of all the big signings that the Alex Bregman signing opened up along the way. But the Bregman signing is a real kick to the fruit stand to the Boston Red Sox. And there's no getting around it. There's no getting around that this is a failure for the Red Sox that has a lot of ramifications. And quite frankly, if you're a Boston fan, and I make no bones about it, I'm a native New Englander who grew up a huge Red Sox fan, and while I follow every team and I'm not provincial with my fandom, yeah, I'm a lifelong follower of the team. I can't pretend that this really doesn't absolutely, on 53 different layers, absolutely just stink. Hey, let's talk a little bit about the Everydayer Club. Now, I want to thank you all for listening to us and subscribing to us. And you know what? I want you to make us your first listen every day. And thanks for listening to the Locked On Podcast Network. And if you haven't already, check out the Everydayer Club. You have the ad-free audio feed for Locked On MLB, compatible with Apple Podcasts and Spotify and every other major podcast app. And I promise you, we are getting it set up. We're going to have a Discord situation where there's going to be all sorts of interaction with us, and especially during the regular season when there's going to be a lot of stuff to talk about and hopefully some more free agents signing coming up. What I want you to do is check us out at lockedonmlb.supercast.com so you can sign up with the Everydayers Club. That is Locked On MLB. Where's that? lockedonmlb.supercast.com. You know, when the Red Sox signed Bregman last year, it led to a weird chain reaction of events. And let's just get down to it, okay? Rafael Devers was the centerpiece of the team. And he was signed long-term to play with the Red Sox as their third baseman. And he wasn't happy. Sorry, I had to scratch my nose for a second. He wasn't happy that they signed another third baseman. I don't blame Rafael Devers. I don't. If you're signed to be the franchise third baseman, they sign another third baseman, he probably thought, what the hey? I like my stars being competitive like that. And Devers got off, kind of moped, didn't want to go to first, and that rubbed some fans the wrong way and the other, this, that, and the other thing, and got off to a rotten start. But then he turned things around, you may recall. In fact, in his 73 games playing with the Red Sox in 2025, he hit 15 home runs and had an OPS of 905. That's not just that's not just his, when things turned around for him. That's his entire time with Boston, including his rancid start to the season. If you take a look at him, he got off to a start where he batted .225 and an OPS of 787, but his OPS in May was over 1,000. And then the Red Sox traded him to San Francisco in June. And he had one very good month with San Francisco in August. But, he didn't do that well. And he certainly didn't endear himself to Giant fans. It's weird. Giant fans didn't seem to like the deal. And the Red Sox fans, well, look, I hear a lot of he was bad in the clubhouse and this, that, and the other thing. Come on. Manny Ramirez was basically Hannibal Lecter in the clubhouse, and they won 2 World Series with him. There got to be, when you have a guy who's batting to a 905 OPS, then figure out a way to make him happy, especially since he's under contract. And you had the likes of Christian Campbell and Marcelo Meyer, and especially Roman Anthony coming to the team. And so you had a bunch of, Cedar Rafaela was, had a solid year for them. And obviously William Abreu had power and won a Gold Glove. They're all, they had several players steal 20 some odd bases. They made the postseason, but as we all saw in the postseason, they needed that big honking bat in the middle of it, kind of like Rafael Devers. Well, what were the 2 things that we heard about? That because San Francisco picked up his entire contract, we heard that, first of all, Devers is bad in the clubhouse. I don't care. I literally don't care. When am I ever in the clubhouse? I have never been invited to the clubhouse. Teams have had players who are not great in the clubhouse, and maybe Alex Cora, that's part of your job. Get the guy who's a lifelong Red Sox, homegrown World Series champion who owns the deed to Yankee Stadium, and figure out a way to make him smile. And when they did the salary dump of Rafael Devers to San Francisco, that was what it was. It was a salary dump. They got back very little in return. Now, Kyle Harrison was a big prospect for the Giants, and who knows, he may turn things around, but it was a salary dump. And we heard, they freed up all this salary. Now they can sign this, that, and the other thing. Well, step 1 should have been sign Alex Bregman. Bregman was beloved in the clubhouse. Apparently, did great things. Big star, big World Series champion. This, that, and the other thing. Well, now he's gone. So they had Rafael Devers. They brought in Alex Bregman, and here we are, less than a year later. They've got neither. Neither. Good job. Fantastic. Good use of all that money freed up by Rafael Devers. And as I pointed out before, and I'll point out again, the Red Sox did make it to the postseason last year. And on the postseason roster, not one player acquired for Mookie Betts or Rafael Devers appeared in a playoff game. They dumped Mookie. I mean, the Mookie Betts trade is the worst trade of the 21st century. There's no getting around. There was no excuse for it then, and it's turned out more and more to be an absolute cataclysmic disaster. It has to be one of the worst trades in the history of baseball. And it was clear when it happened, it was a terrible trade, and it was a salary dump then. And besides half a good season from Verdugo, they got piddly-poo from it. And then the Devers deal gave a couple of nondescript games from Kyle Harrison and Jordan Hicks, and apparently a chance to be supermarket sweep and sign a bunch of players in this offseason. Well, they made the deals for Sonny Gray and Contreras, and I'm fine with both of those moves, but now they have a massive hole in their lineup. Massive hole in their lineup. Now, is Tristan Campbell going to be the one to fill it in? Is Marcelo Meyer going to be the one to fill it in? There was all the talk about they're going to trade for Ketel Marte, but that's not going to happen. The Diamondbacks said they're not going to deal him. So they have a bunch of good hitters in their lineup. They do. Contreras is going to be a good hitter. Story is going to be a good hitter. Duran is a good hitter. Abreu is a good hitter. But they don't have that big centerpiece hitter in the middle of their lineup. And that's going to be a problem. They lost Bregman and Devers. And right now, because they don't get a pick back, there's no pick assigned to Bregman. So they've got, between Bregman, Devers, and Betts, they got absolute a zippo. And if you're a free agent sniffing around the Red Sox, you're taking a look at this and like, look how they treated Rafael Devers. Look at how they dumped Mookie Betts. I don't know if I want to sign there. Would you? Dante Bichette is not going to sign. Bo Bichette. They have a better chance of signing Dante Bichette than Bo Bichette right now. Why would Bo Bichette sign with the Red Sox? Are they going to offer the most money? That's probably not going to happen because you see they're very interested in cutting their costs. And as one of the listeners, it was Alzeus Blues 2018 said they spent too much on Liverpool. That means the Red Sox ownership owns both the Red Sox and the Premier League football team in Liverpool. Cool. Strawberry fields forever. But here we go. So the Red Sox dumped Rafi Devers, got virtually nothing from him. They dumped Mookie Betts, they got nothing from him. And they brought Bregman in for 1 year. And they have all that money to spend. And they're not going to get anything for it. Now, Roman Anthony looked terrific in his half a season with the Red Sox, was hurt for the playoffs, and maybe he would have gotten the big hit against New York. Marcelo Meyer and Christian Campbell, maybe they can all come up and flourish at the same time. But you know what would have helped? Having a World Series champion slugger in the lineup to take them under their wing. They had 2. Now they have 0. And if you want to argue with me, go ahead. But unfortunately, facts are on my side. And this was disastrous for the Red Sox. Absolutely disastrous. The Orioles have improved. The Blue Jays have improved. And, the Red Sox and Yankees are in a weird status quo. But if the Yankees bring back Bellinger, then at least they're holding steady. But this stinks. if you're a Red Sox fan, this stinks. And they have a lot to answer for. That you're going to dump Rafael Devers, okay, but you can't even keep. You're doing it so you get money and free up the supposed clubhouse situation. Fine, cool, fantastic. Let's make some s'mores. But now you don't even bring Bregman back. I don't get it. I don't get it. And I don't get a team like the Red Sox acting like they're a small market club while charging very big market prices. So there you go. There you go. The Red Sox, if you're a season ticket holder, maybe they'll be a wild card team. They're certainly not an elite team. And maybe some of those young players can turn things around. But it's a lot to ask for them to come in and say, hey, we're not going to have World Series champion sluggers around you because, we're the small market Red Sox. That makes sense. Hey, but you know what? Thanks for making Locked On MLB your first listen. And tune in because there's probably going to be a whole lot of episodes coming up as the free agent thaw appears to be showing up. And make sure you subscribe and follow Locked On MLB to get all the latest episodes, and follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter or whatever it's called these days. And join the Everydayer Club. Get Locked On MLB ad-free, plus members to the Discord. Once we get that launched, the little snag, we are going to get it going there. And you got to go to lockedonmlb.supercast.com. For those of you in video, check out the first ever 24/7 Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel. And let's talk about the trivia question, talking about former Red Sox who were troublemakers. Manny Ramirez hit his final career home run as a member of what team? That's the trivia question for you. Manny Ramirez, who helped the Red Sox win 2 World Series titles, but he was bad in the clubhouse. Yeah, he was a World Series MVP in 2004. I don't care if he was bad in the clubhouse. I like seeing World Series championships. He hit his final career home run as a member of what team? And it wasn't the Red Sox. So, talking about the Alex Bregman signing, how it helped the Cubs, what it means to other teams, and how the Red Sox, to quote Darth Vader, now his failure is complete. And by that, I mean the Red Sox front office. This has been Locked On MLB. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. I'm a little miffed, and you can call me Sully.